Hello, and welcome back to another exciting program. Today, we have a very special treat for you viewers out there. We are talking about the dangers of a rising China and how they have exponentially grown within the past decade. China is becoming more and more powerful as we speak. Wang Ji, dean of the School of International Studies, when asked who the enemy really is, said that most Chinese would prefer to say the US. But, in fact, the US and China have had a pretty productive partnership since Richard Nixon first went over in 1972. Both powerhouse nations have shared a hatred for the Soviet Union at some point in time. China has even disregarded foreign policy with certain nations because the relationship with America was far too important. Because America was the main producer for arms sold to Taiwan. Once the Soviet Union was no longer a threat, foreign policy was put on hold, for economic development with America was far more important because of the availability of demand, technology, and investment. China officials called the country's power surge as a peaceful rise. So why would China risk any of the prosperity that America has brought to it? China's strategy has begun to change, that's why. Now that the country is strong, it no longer needs any American support. The Chinese people that believes that the West needs China more than China needs the West, which is becoming far too true. They believe that America will lose the war in Afghanistan. As China becomes more powerful, their hunger for more power also increases, expands their wants and senses of entitlement. More and more people are being sucked into nationalism as well. On the other hand, the PLA's voice in the government is fading quickly, so they are becoming more outspoken in the public. Because Chinese leaders today have little to no military background whatsoever, they do indeed stay in good terms with the PLA, for fear of a possible revolt. Officials do listen more carefully to public opinion as well. Leaders believe if strong domestic policies are upheld, there will be strong foreign policies. The problem now is that China's newfound actions will depend on how powerful their economy becomes in the near future. If China wants to prosper, they must stop relying so heavily on nationalism and start paying attention to the economics. The sad truth is, there's a lot that China and the US agree on, such as a healthy world economy, peace in the Middle East, and open trading systems. China has the potential to become so powerful, which scares many of the countries surrounding it, because they are so secretive about it. They want to achieve more, but don't cooperate well with other countries. They try to assure the world that there's nothing to fear about their rise, but it's hard to trust them because of the chance of territorial disputes in Asia. It's not about how China will utilize its strength, but how other countries will react to it. For example, China has recently begun working with Japan and South Korea, but China recently failed to back South Korea over the sinking of a Korean Navy corvette which lost a total of 46 crew, even though the international panel had concluded that the Shinan was attacked by a North Korean submarine. When America and South Korea reacted to by sinking by planned joint exercise in the Yellow Sea, China objected and got one of them to move eastward to the Sea of Japan. And when North Korea shelled the South Korea island last month, China carelessly recommended to condemning it. Another important subject for China is that it's been updating its military in three different fields through a broad spectrum. First of all, China has created an entire missile program that is deemed to be the world's most effective. This has places around China scared to whether or not they'll be pointed in their general direction. Second of all, China has begun to build an impressive-sized military fleet through submarines. Though this fleet consists of older models used by Russians, which some retired American admirals consider junk. This may be a large improvement from their past fleet, which consisted of Ming and Romeo-class style boats, but America's Navy and submarine fleet are still far too superior for them to match. Lastly, the PLA has also made large steps into the fields of technology by using cyber warfare. With all this in hand, this is causing many people to think what China is really preparing for. China has made huge leaps and bounds during this military buildup, as they now have the ability to protect their coastlines into the sea and oceans by over 1,000 nautical miles. With this in mind, America needs to rethink their plans into the Western Pacific, either by securing footholds in an area that is farther out of the ballistic range of the missiles, or reassert their dominance in the area. There also has been information that these upgrades have cost far too much money. Though this may seem true, it's not. The expenditures of the Chinese and their budget has kept pace with their GDP within the past decade. In comparison with the world leader, which is America, China spends on average 1/6 of what the US does. Another increasingly large problem with China's military is that even though the Chinamen are required by law to serve a mandatory 2 years in the military, this may seem like they have a lot of experience in the art of war, but this is very wrong. In fact, many of the people who are in the military have never seen combat or never experienced a combat situation. And the people in the Navy, which they have been building up through the past couple of years, have never seen the open sea and had the opportunity to master their position or tactics like submarine warfare. With this in mind, it can overall prove that though China has been building up its military and growing its forces rapidly, it will not be able to withstand any type of real pressure applied by America. For instance, if China and America were to start a war, as of right now, China's economy would completely collapse due to America's trade embargoes upon them. Also, even if we were to launch their submarine fleet, America's Navy and submarine would have no problem dismantling them. There is one thing that people have to keep in mind when looking at the situation between China and America. When two sides reach a pinnacle of power and are beginning to, let's say, fight over their territorial gains, so to speak, which may be the stock market for all we know, they decide to bump heads. In this case, our two groups are China and America, and the threat they have towards one another. If one side doesn't arm themselves, then they leave themselves open to attack. But when they do arm themselves, it's as an active threat towards the other side. This indeed shows that the relationship between China and America will eventually grow worse, and one side will inevitably break down. As China becomes a rapidly rising power within the world, how they choose to utilize this strength is crucial how the rest of the world will go on. The King of Yu, Guozhen, is not only seen as a ruler, but as a symbol of overcoming adversity and the struggle. China insists that they are strictly about peace, and even though they do not have enough of power, financially or military-wise, how they decide to use this power is somewhat alarming to other countries. The good news is that China has indeed started to join international organizations that it once has shunned. As well as earning credentials as a good citizen, this is also a safe way to counter American influences. China has led the six-party talks designed to curb North Korea's nuclear program. The government signed a comprehensive test ban treaty and, by and large, stopped proliferating weapons, though some rogue countries within China has continued to do so. It sent people on UN peacekeeping operations, supplying more of them than any other permanent member of the Security Council or any NATO country. But still, they can take their power with a grain of salt and enjoy their prosperity to become power greedy and out of control. Many are not worried about China becoming the overwhelming power because they do not have the military strength, but they do, however, have trading in their corner. They buy raw materials and sell the finished products along with holdings of $2.6 trillion in foreign exchange reserves. It is safe to say that they'll stick to trading, which has brought to the rapid ascension, rather than change the game plan to warring with their neighbors like China has previously done with the Japanese. It needs to focus on civil alliances with other countries, such as the U.S., and focus on homeland issues instead of bribing in other countries' problems.